actually
We're live.
right now.
All right. Morning, everyone. We're just going to wait for a few more people to join us, and then we can get started. And I'll do some introductions, make sure this is actually straight. Okay, so, oh, my camera's tilting here. Sorry, guys. There we go. Yeah, exactly. Okay, good morning. My name is Special Constable Shaylin Jackson. I'm the Community Service Officer for the Woodstock Police Service. This morning, we are hosting a virtual Coffee with a Cop, and this time we're actually focusing on recruitment efforts. So hiring within the Woodstock Police Service. So if anyone out there has any questions about the recruitment process, we've gathered some questions over the last week or so to find out what people want to know about becoming a member of the Woodstock Police Service, what that looks like, careers in policing, and so we've got a few of our officers here today with us to answer some of your questions. From left to right, we have Constable Theresa Mutsers. She is a member of our community response unit, and she's an experienced officer hire. So she's someone that we hired who previously worked at a different police service. In the middle there, we have Sergeant Mike Beatty. He is a sergeant on our road, or in our uniform division. He also does a lot of work with our recruitment and recruiting officers that can become members of the Woodstock Police Service. He's also an experienced hire who came from another police service. And on the right, we have Constable Paul Thind, and he is one of our newer officers. He was hired back in 2020, so he has vested interest in or has experience and information to share about going through the recruitment process recently. And he has previous experience with the Canadian Border Services Agency, so he's got an interesting background as well. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the comment section. I will try to monitor those as closely as I can. And we'll make sure that we get as many questions answered as we can today. Where's Daryl at? He's actually, I don't think he's here today. I think he's off right now. First question is, what does the hiring process look like for someone who's interested in a career in policing?
Well, I guess I'll just jump on and take the stage from there. It's basically an 11-step interview process. First would be for the applicant to obtain Ontario Chief of Police certificate, so an OACP certificate, and then they would have to submit the package. If you want to say a successful applicant would be chosen, they'd be asked to submit a pre-background questionnaire. And again, if deemed successful, they would move into the interview phase, which would include a 2-hour written exam-style local-focused interview, then moving to an essential competencies interview. Then, again, if successful there, we would move into a physical portion, which consists of the police fit pin testing. Again, proceeding through there, you would move to a panel interview or a board interview with our senior administration, whether it be with the inspectors, chief, or deputy chief. And following that, you would move into background investigation, which consists of your psych test, a medical test, and following that, if you're successful, an offer of employment is provided.
Awesome. Purple, you just went through the hiring process just a little over, or I guess under 2 years ago. What was your experience like on the other end of that hiring process?
It was very smooth and efficient.
Yeah.
People are usually sort of intimidated by the entire recruitment process, going through the process itself. Thinking there's so many steps, but they're kind of seamless, integrated into each other. For example, some of the stuff, such as coming up with the application package, and even the changing times of COVID, the OACP certificate, you can do online. So you can do it at home. You can sit at the comfort of your home, complete your application package, email that in. And throughout the process, it's not that, from step 1 to 11, you're pretty much doing it on. on your own if you have further questions on how do you need to prepare for an interview. There's always resources. You can always ask if you have questions about a particular step, what does it entail? You can contact the recruitment team and ask them questions as well. So I found it to be very friendly and no issues at all. It was done. It actually is different from a candidate. For some background might take a little longer, and it also depends on how competitive you are. Sometimes it can take a couple of months to a little more months than for some of the other applicants.
It is a very competitive process becoming in policing. Basically, we're looking for people with life skills, life experience, their motivation behind why they want to be a police officer, and so on and so forth. Their job, work, life history.
Awesome. Theresa, you came from a different police service. How was the transition, since we're talking about hiring, how was your transition and hiring process different from, a typical new recruits, or how did that transition go?
The interviews, it was different because I had a lot of stage 1 to 7 already completed at another service. So when I came here, it was just a matter of having a few interviews, doing some background, home interview, and then it was short, but there's a few less stages to go through for an experienced hire.
Awesome. So we have a question here. Says, good morning, officers. I just applied for the auxiliary position. Also about to write the OACP certification. Any tips for the certification? Looking forward to getting my feet in policing. Thanks and appreciate all you do for us.
So I think that since I've taken the OACP certification, it has gone online. There has been some minor changes, but I think focus of OACP remains the same on gathering the aptitude of candidates if they have a general mindset towards policing, towards problem solving, towards different kind of skills put into a test that you can use in day-to-day life. And if you're preparing for that, just focus on your language grammar skills, on mathematical ability, general very basic mathematical ability, and problem solving skills, and that should help you.
Awesome. We have another question here. It says, I'm almost 20, currently in police foundations at Fanshawe, and will be graduating this spring. What would you recommend? What would you recommend me to apply for at this point?
Right now, I would say given that I don't know you personally, I would say we look for a lot of volunteer work. At this point, I would say try getting into, say, the auxiliary with our service, or just getting out, maybe Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Woodstock, the Alzheimer's Society. So basically, we're trying to see if you have, or what you can provide us with life experience, and whatever makes you stand out more opposed to the next applicant would be most beneficial for you.
I think also, along with Sergeant Beatty saying, working with different groups of populations helps you say, I've worked with elderly, I've worked with young people, I coach kids soccer, and now I'm helping at a seniors home. It shows that you have a wide range of skills working with different kinds of people, because that's essentially what policing's about, right? We work with a whole bunch of different kinds of people, not just our own age group. So getting out there and volunteering with Big Brothers, Alzheimer's Society, like you said, working with elderly and young people, it gives you that broader range, right?
Me personally, for about 8 years, I volunteered with St. John Ambulance for the medical first response. And as Constable Mutsers said, it kind of gives you added skills on different type of populations, and whether it's providing first aid, patient care, and also main thing in volunteering also is that you get to have interaction with different types of groups, and it actually develops your communication skills, and that's a big part of volunteering as well.
Awesome. We have a question from Adrian asking, are there any opportunities in cybersecurity professionals?
Actually, we are, right now we are hiring for, in our IT department. By all means, please feel free to apply, and we'll be happy to take a look at your resume.
Awesome. We had one person ask, do I have to be a Canadian citizen to join the Woodstock Police Service? Can you discuss a little bit about like what are the basic requirements to become a police officer?
Absolutely. To answer that, yes, you do have to be Canadian citizen or permanent resident, meaning basically you have to be issued a social insurance number by our Canadian government. Short of that, you have to be at least 18 years of age. As it stands right now, you have to have a minimum of an Ontario secondary school degree or its equivalent, and be physically and mentally fit to perform the duties as a police officer.
What are some of the other requirements to become a police officer?
Oh dear, you're going to make me go into it. So you need to be a valid Class G. I'll get the exact thing here. Valid Class G driver's license. Have vision within the acceptable standards, which is 20/40 uncorrected or corrected with 20/20 with it says binocularly, but with glasses. There's hearing ranges. I'm not going to get into the actual frequency. Have a valid first aid CPR, and be of good moral character. And you cannot, I wrote this down here as well, you cannot have a criminal record that a pardon has not been obtained. That's a big one. We get asked that question quite a lot. So the answer to that is no, you cannot have a criminal record that a pardon hasn't been issued.
Okay. Oops, sorry, I'm just trying to read through the comments here. One more question. I've been accepted to school as well for Police Foundations, which is it better to try to get through the OACP or going to school and writing the OACP afterwards? I have a background in management and working with children.
I would say further yourself, further your education by all means, first and foremost. That is another thing that we look for in recruiting, that your eagerness or your drive, your motivation to pursue post-secondary and further your education. By all means, I would strongly suggest you finish your school and then proceed with your OACP and go from there. But,
and the good thing about having different range of education too is awesome. When you come here, I feel like when you meet your fellow officers, nobody has the same education. Like this room alone has different education, and that's what we all bring to the table, right? So for that person asking that question, if that person already has a business and management and they work with children and now they're going to go do police foundations, they have a nice wide range to bring to the table, right? So when they do get hired, they can help in certain calls that require business issues or child issues, and then they have that. You just have that much more wealth of education and experience, right?
I agree, although there's no minimum requirements other than high school. I think more education the better, and diverse education is better too. For example, my first post-secondary education program was in hospitality and travel management with focus on client service. But if you look at policing, much of the interactions are focused on client service. So you can always have something from your education that's useful in policing, no matter what the education, even if it's trades, even if it's something, if it's a plumber's program or anything, it gives you some sort of skill set that you can, with the way policing is, you're going to have a call in your life that will require something from really diverse background that you would never thought of before.
And just to speak on both the constables here, we have, our officers here have a wide range, as Theresa was saying. I believe every single one has post-secondary in some sort of manner. We have from degrees to master's degrees to bachelor's. I myself was a welder prior to becoming a police officer. We have welders, we have plumbers, we have electricians. Everybody here is certified in something different or had an education in something different. So yes, what Constable Thin said, exactly, the more education the better. It just shows your motivation to and willingness to continue your education.
Just as a follow-up question, someone had sent me an email asking, is there a benefit to getting a university degree over a college certificate?
I think it's the same kind of question we already answered.
I think it's it's more so what you want to do, because there's no specific education for policing, as we just said, right? It's what your interest lies in. You know, anything can be used, any kind of education can be used for policing. I believe most of the college programs are more hands-on, whereas more university programs are critical thinking and theoretical.
But if you want to talk about moving up the ladder and the requirements, that is perspective of an inspector's position.
And inspectors, if you want to look at that perspective, something whereas a business degree from university would be quite beneficial. If you're looking to move up the ranks that way, that would be quite beneficial.
And then it's easier to get your master's, obviously, if you already have an undergraduate, right?
Awesome. For those who are interested in learning more or are considering a career in policing but maybe don't know a whole lot about it, what would you say are some of the duties and responsibilities of everyday policing work?
So it's really a lot of variety. I think it's a bit of everything that you can imagine. You can deal with family issues, you can deal with issues pertaining to children. Mental health is a big one nowadays. Substance abuse, more the usual criminal activities, whether it's big time or property crime, or traffic issues. So it's a little bit of everything, or even more of the helping with the administration that day-to-day operations around the city run smoothly.
And kind of as a follow-up question to that, what are some of the pros and cons to a career in policing?
There's quite a bit on both ends.
For my own, I'll just start.
Yeah, absolutely.
Based on coming from a bigger service and then coming to a smaller service, even the idea of lateral movement from one service to another service is great, because I came here to be able to be closer to my family. So on days that my kids have activities in the city of Woodstock, I can be a part of the community and watch my kids play soccer, or so it's that involvement that you can have. And that was a huge pro for me, being away and commuting versus now being part of my community differently and being a part of my kids' lives, and that was a priority. So I would say that's a big pro to policing.
And just to add to that, another pro is it's never the same. Every day is different. You hear people say we're going on routine calls or routine. Nothing's routine. Everything's different every day. It's kind of what gives you a little oomph in the morning, because it's not going to be, oh, okay, I got to do this again. It's totally different every day. Con, you're going to see people at their worst, and not everybody's going to be happy. And you're going to witness things that normal people don't witness. So that's a con for policing.
I would say maybe it's both are tied into each other, but definitely more pros than cons. For example, adding on to Sergeant Beatty's point, when you're going to situations where what usually people won't see in their occupations, right? When they're at their worst, you're helping them out. You're their source of hope. So I think that's definitely the satisfaction, the gratification from that is a big pro. Also with, depending on what unit, mostly, majority of the police service is uniform patrol, depending on what you work in. There's shift work, there's pros and cons to that as well. You're expected to, work weekends and, nights and different holidays. It's kind of can take away from your family life a little bit, but also with shift work, I find there's pros to that as well, that you get a lot of time off as well. You get, if you just based on schedule, you don't work as many days in the year as usual other occupations would work. So I think there's both, but definitely a lot more satisfaction and a lot more pros by a long stretch compared to cons.
Absolutely.
Awesome. What skills and qualities makes a good police officer, in your opinion?
Okay, that was one of the questions I was prepared for. I wrote this down the other day. So what we look for is, I can't stress it enough, life experience. Should have a plausible, reliable, and consistent work history. Show responsibility and trustworthiness. Be able to demonstrate strong relationships with current and past employers. So I'm just trying to go through this. We're basically looking for transferable skills as well. with past work history. Like Pritt said, he went to school for hospitality and management. That is absolutely transferable when it comes to policing, because again, we have to be hospitable when dealing with people. We're looking for mature people, people that show maturity, effective interpersonal and communication skills, people who exhibit respect for inclusiveness and diversity, basically equal opportunity all around, and applicants that demonstrate these values through their personal work and volunteer history. That kind of runs it down. That's all right. I just jotted it all down there.
No, that's all right. And those are all great answers in a recruitment perspective. I'm curious, maybe Theresa, as someone who works in a more specialty unit, you have to work with the same people closely. Even with you, Paul, working on a platoon with the same people closely. What do you find are good qualities in your partners or your teammates in terms of working closely with those people on a regular basis? What makes them a good policing partner?
I think like camaraderie is huge, right? And that goes back to being a pro in policing, and being able to work with different people. Like, we all come from different backgrounds, we all come from different education, we all come from different life stuff, and so it's being able to work with each other and being flexible and adaptable to other people's situations, the calls we take, and I think that's huge on a platoon. And even for me, working with the core unit, to, one day I might have to walk downtown, the next minute, I might be doing something else with in the community response unit. So you just have to be adaptable and flexible and work with each other, and it allows for a healthy work environment.
For elaborate on that, sort of Beauty said reliability, and Constable Mutsers said about flexibility. So those are things that actually start. It's not something that you develop right before your application phase. You have to show that right from your school days, from your post-secondary days. Like, are you going to your scheduled classes on time? Do you have good attendance record? Are you doing your assigned schoolwork on time? So that itself is an indicator on if you're reliable or not. Just in the perspective of the camaraderie, sometimes we work two-person police cruiser. Like, we're partner up with someone. Just ask yourself this question: are you the kind of person that someone would be comfortable for 12 hours being in the same car with? So I think that. So that obviously there's a personality has to be factored into it.
Awesome. What would you recommend those interested in a career in policing do to help make their application stand out? I know you've kind of touched on like some of the qualities and things. You mentioned volunteering with community organizations. Is there anything else that an officer can do, or a potential officer could do, to really stand out in the application process or make themselves a good candidate?
Again, it comes down to, I hate to stress on it, but your life experiences and your volunteer work, being that you're willing to show that you're putting a commitment in with your community, whether it be through coaching or any team sports, that just to show, I played baseball or hockey, still do, I'm committed to that. If you guys want to add in, it's just
a well-rounded individual, right? Are you mature with your personal life? Are you not associated with the parties that would make you look bad, or are you good with your finances? I think that kind of everything makes a well-rounded individual in an application package, especially when we look at your background. So that definitely means something.
And how long do you hold on to applications before I should resubmit?
We hold on to applications for 1 year. If you are not contacted within that 1 year, then I'd strongly suggest you resubmit after that year.
Awesome. And if they have like new things to add to the resume, whether that be new skills or new courses and things like that, is it okay to continue to resubmit as?
Yeah, absolutely. As those come in, please feel free. We usually, due to COVID, we've had a little setbacks here, but we usually issue the applicants or whoever's applying a file number, and you just have to add whatever you're bringing in, whether it's a new certificate, volunteer work, what so have you, and just add to your file number, and we'll put that in your file.
Perfect. Can you guys discuss, someone mentioned that they'd love to hear about lateral and higher up promotional opportunities, what that looks like.
Okay, well, lateral as in from different services, or?
I think it could be different units, right? You can talk about different specialty units that are opportunities.
So
What's the process like moving from a road, as a road officer, what's the process like moving from a road position to a specialty unit?
So I think since I've been in Woodstock, their process is a resume, cover letter, show your interest, why you're interested in that unit, and then you go through an interview, and it's like being hired all over again. But it's shorter, obviously, and it's internal. But if you're interested in something further than patrol, or something different than patrol, then it's just as the same process. You're sending your resume, your cover letter, your courses that you've been on that pertain to that unit, and go from there.
Just to add to Theresa, just again, it's showing that you're pursuing a further education. You're taking all the courses you can that are, say, ident related. You become a scenes of crime officer. You've taken such steps as to take whatever courses needed to be that. As for promotional, it's the same thing. What leadership courses have you taken? Have you had some acting time on the platoon? Just goes from there.
I also think that the volunteering doesn't stop either.
Yes.
So once you're here and into policing, it still helps you to go volunteer outside of the service and within the service. Because if you want different movement in the service, then they want to see that you're furthering your education, you're furthering your
Yourself.
Yeah, yourself, and being volunteering. So it doesn't stop. Once you're here, it continues.
I also believe, I think it's good to emphasize on, other than the lateral movement in between units, just on uniform patrol alone, you can actually get more skills and specialize in things such as scenes of crime officer, rep technician, offender fetal sobriety test officer, sex offender registry officer. There's so many opportunities and courses and specialization within uniform patrol itself as well that you can qualify for, and take on those tasks as well while you're on the road.
Yeah, it's actually really good to say that, because there's a lot that you can do versus going to another unit. You can be doing SOCO or scenes of crime officer at a scene, and adds variety to your day, right?
Yeah, so there's like specialties within just, the regular daily patrols, right? What would you guys say, most of you guys have experience either in a larger service or a similar service that has a larger expanse. What would you guys say is the benefit to working for a service like Woodstock, where it's smaller than some of the large centers, but is still in a growing community?
I'll jump on. I came from one of the largest services in Ontario, and I'm actually busier here for calls for service than I was at that place. So it gives you more, I hate saying it again, but it gives you more experience on the road. You have a more variety of calls here than I did at the larger service. Yes, given there's specific calls at the larger service that we don't get here, but again, I'm busier here than I was at the larger service.
It's just different how they.
Well,
yeah,
and here we see things from the start to the finish,
yes.
Whereas the bigger service,
Your
a call
exposure,
comes in
yeah.
and it's just, okay, I'm done, off to somebody else.
Yeah, your exposure's different, right?
Do you think there's a sense of like satisfaction in seeing a call right from the beginning to the end? And
Absolutely. Whether it's, you see that something happens, arrest bad guy goes to jail, hopefully. But yeah, there is that sense of pride in doing that, seeing it right from the beginning to the
And
end.
knowing where the victim is and where that goes.
Yeah.
For example, I come from a different sort of law enforcement agency with about 6,500 officers, and a little bit different scope on what the laws that are used to enforce. but from that big of an agency, we're seeing thousands of people every day, different people traveling into Canada, right? So here, I think there's a lot more satisfaction. It's more close-knit, just between the officers itself as well, working on a smaller platoon, and seeing a lot of the same people again, and saying hi to them, and just me being more involved in the community, right? So just when I go around for patrol, there's so many people who recognize me, and then I recognize them as well. So I think that's a satisfaction itself.
Whereas
It goes both ways.
yeah,
for the community and for you.
Yes.
yeah, a larger service, you're pretty much just a number. Whereas a smaller service, it's pretty tight knit, family. Basically, we're a family, and then you get recognized by people in the community.
Yeah, and you figure out how to work better together. You're not working with a stranger, you're working with someone you know, right? Awesome. Kind of in relation to that, as a smaller police service, there's still lots of opportunities for specialty units. And I know you guys talked a little bit about some of the specialty skills you can learn as a road officer, but as a smaller police service, we still have to be able to function as well as a larger police service. So can you guys speak a little bit about some of the specialty units and some of the opportunities that could be made available to people who are interested in getting started in a policing career in Woodstock?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, smaller service, we wear many hats here. An officer in uniform can be scenes of crime officer, breath tech, sex offender registry, traffic reconstructionist, fingerprint officer, DNA collection, and then you can move into a specialty unit, whether it be forensic ident, or criminal investigation, drugs and intel, canine, special victims unit, containment. We have quite a plethora of ways and means to go about things here. Training's never finished. People always ask us about training, and we get trained we're on courses all year, all the time. Myself, I just got back from another course. You're constantly being trained here. People just think once you're hired, that's it. That's not the truth. We are constantly going on courses and furthering our education.
Awesome. And what type of positions is Woodstock Police currently hiring for, or anticipate will be hiring for in the future?
Oh dear, everything. No. As it stands right now, we are in the current process of hiring for special constables and cadets. Again, we spoke to it briefly earlier. We are looking for our IT department. We're always hiring clerks up front, dispatch or communications. We typically hire throughout the year. A lot of it's done through attrition. However, as the city grows, so does our service, and we have to fill those spots.
Awesome. Someone mentioned here, I attempted the OACP, passed the written but not the beat test, then waited and then passed the beat test and not the written. Sometimes that happens. Just curious about, sorry, I'm just trying to keep up with the comments here.
Absolutely.
And see what people are asking here. Let's see. There's a question here from Christopher. Christopher, we're mostly focusing on the recruiting process and what it takes to become a police officer for the Woodstock Police Service today, but his question was, just driving in the city, you can see multiple drug deals going down. Is there any officers that just tour around looking for stuff like that? So you can kind of speak to the specialty units again. That kind of comes back to that. We do have a drugs and intelligence unit that focuses on drug investigations, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have our drugs and intel officers always. You may not see them, they're always around. And we also have our community response unit that consists of our beat or our core unit. And Constable Mutsers is, you'll see her downtown, usually walking up and down the beat. So
Sabrina wants to know if she's too old now because she's 43.
Never too old. Never too old. There's no age limit on applying for police officer.
What's the oldest officer we've hired?
Would have happened a few years back.
Yeah.
He was 49 years old.
49. Awesome. You briefly touched on, you mentioned that we have cadets and special constables that you're hiring for. Can you speak a little bit about the difference between cadets and special constable positions versus police officer positions and what that looks like?
Sure.
What are those roles?
Okay, yeah, absolutely. What you guys want to do? All right. Cadets, you do our prisoner cell management. I say it a lot. They're basically our farm team for police constables. We pick right from them, typically to once they've shown that they've showed the maturity, the skill level, they proceed to the Ontario Police College. The cadets deal, like I say, with prisoner management, cell management. They do fingerprints, DNA collection. I'm just trying to rattle it all off here in my head. They even take calls for service at times that when the officer's on the road, or if it's a minor call for service, the cadets can handle it. Whereas special constables, they are trained to assist the cadets, but special constables are mainly our court services, and they stay and deal directly with courts. Again, prisoner transport, prisoner escort, cell management.
Perfect. So the clear distinction there is that they're civilian positions.
Yes.
Right. Greg commented, do I need to take police foundations or have a university degree to be hired? Greg, we did talk a lot about education required at the beginning of the video, so if you want, you can go back and read some of those questions. If I put in an application in a few months and didn't hear anything back, should I put in another application? Tim, we also touched on that. And you can go back and watch the part of the video where we discuss those answers. Is there a particular intake date you are currently hiring for?
As it stands right now, we are going through an interview process right now for the May intake. Again, with COVID, it's been pushed back at the Ontario Police College, so it's going to be possibly late May, June intake. But we accept applications throughout the year, and we'll probably be looking for September or January intake coming up.
So you had mentioned earlier that we're like constantly hiring throughout the year, but there are specific intake times that the Ontario Police College is accepting their students, right?
Yeah,
So
we are allotted, the chief asked for so many seats, or after going through the police service board, I should say that, we're advised how many officers we can hire, and then chief then asks the college if we can obtain some seats. If we're allowed seats, then that depends on how many officers we hire. Given that being said, there's 3 intakes a year at the police college. One's in May, one's in September, and one's in January. And again, we actively recruit throughout the year, and we do the process.
Yeah, so once someone has successfully completed the application process and they've been hired by us, how long does it take for them to go through the Ontario Police College, and then what does their training look like when they come back from the college?
Since Prick's new,
So there's obviously some sort of orientation. COVID had to be, amended a little bit to make it shorter, so there's less exposure. Once you go to Ontario Police College, I believe it's 13 weeks or 12 weeks, about 3 months. Covers a bit of everything: police vehicle operations, federal law, provincial law, other duties that you're expected to do, officer safety, different aspects of police training. Once you come back to Woodstock, there's post-OPC training, mainly focused on the local operations, how you're going to deal with it, and the local database, the police record system training for Woodstock, and just to go over again on things that might have been, not as emphasized at Ontario Police College. So, such as officer safety and, use of force training. So there is a component that's covered at Ontario Police College, but is repeated in much more detail once you come back as well. Once you come back, do the post-Ontario Police College training with our trainers here, with our instructors here. you're assigned to a coach officer. So that can last about 3 months. There's a certain number of shifts that you have to do with the coach officer, starting from the coach officer telling you how are you going to do things on the road. Then you usually shadow them in the beginning. After that, you show the skills that you have gathered and learned from coach officers and go into the different type of calls. And you get assessed on that. And once you pass your final assessment, then you're on your own.
18 months probation after that.
Yes.
Awesome. So how long will it take to hear back for auxiliary interviews? So technically the deadline to submit the applications for the auxiliary position is today at 4 p.m. I think. So by the time all of the applications have been submitted and, you know, they take a look at through the applications and, right, it's a bit of a process.
Yeah, it's a bit of a process. It just takes a matter of waiting to see who all applies. Then going through it will most likely be within the next 2 weeks that we start making calls.
Perfect. For the fitness log, is it only the last 2 weeks record that we need to show as mentioned, or the longer we keep track of our fitness activities, the better?
The longer you keep track is the better.
Okay.
It shows your commitment.
Okay. And would a long history have an impact on the application?
It just shows that you're committed to your fitness, you're committed to the job, and you're motivated. How motivated you are.
Awesome. Earlier, you guys mentioned there's a bunch like training opportunities continue to come up even after you've been hired. Can you guys talk about some of the training you guys have or specialties that you guys have taken training in?
I'll be here forever.
Teresa, how about you?
So my first course when I came here was SACO, or Senior Crime Officer. After that, once I got into a specialty unit in community response unit, I had opportunities to have more courses, like a search warrant course, media relations course, interview and investigation course. I also had what they call now is CIT, but I had GIT, which is the General Investigations training. So I brought that with me, which is a prerequisite for a lot of other courses. So yeah, I've had a few really good courses. I've gone back to Ontario Police College for week or 2 week courses, and it's been a great opportunity to go back and continue my education. And it is nice to be here to have that opportunity to have all those courses or to even further my education. And and it creates a little bit more of a focus.
And on top of that, we get annual training in mental health. We get a plethora of training throughout the year, so whether it be mental health, use of force, defensive tactics, it just.
In my short time here, just in a matter of 2 years, because we're a small service, but it's definitely exposed to that you're supposed to be self-sufficient, and you get a lot more training than some of the bigger services offer you. So just in the span of 2 years, I have had breath technician, sex offender registrant. I have had media relief as well. I'm slated to go to peer-to-peer support training. So that's just like definitely you get a lot more training and ongoing training. So there'll be much more courses coming throughout the year that everyone can apply for and take.
Carol wants to know, are you hiring and or accepting applications for experienced officers from within Ontario?
Absolutely. Please apply. Yes. No, we are, yes, we are currently accepting all experienced applications. We do have upcoming positions, so please feel free to apply.
The nice thing about that is there's less time restrictions in terms of like when we can accept them because of they don't have to go to college anymore,
No,
right?
They don't.
For the auxiliary application, are you looking for a fitness log and OACP certificate to be included?
Again, it comes back to you want to be that applicant to stand out. So I would say submit what you believe would be the most relevant and what makes you stand out to the other applicants.
So it's not required,
It's not
but
required,
it's definitely,
it's definitely
a
benefit,
bonus
yeah.
for sure. Awesome. I think That's all we have for questions right now. Was there anything that you guys wanted to touch on, or something that you want potential future members of the police service, or people who are interested to learn or to know about before they apply?
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't updated our website in a little bit, so
We're working on it.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing process.
So one of the questions we get asked a lot through our email is what should they submit? When submitting a package, we look for the OAC certificate, the Woodstock application, your resume cover letter, school transcripts, certificates, volunteer experience, reference letters, and any other further documentation that you believe would make you stand out over the other applicants.
The application form can be found on our website if you go to the Contact Us Careers page. That's where you'll find that application form.
And it can be submitted by email, fax, snail mail, or in person.
And just in conclusion, I would say, don't be intimidated by the process, but I would say it's very competitive, and apply when you feel that you're competitive best. And this is, so far, out of all the jobs I've had in about the last 14 years, the best job I've had. Best workplace, a very professional, inclusive, and respectful environment. Very nice environment to work in. Actually, Sergeant Beatty and Constable Mutser actually were the interviewing officers when I got my job for my interview when I applied. So I definitely recommend that if you feel you're competitive best, that you apply.
Awesome. One last question for Theresa. As a female, how is working in policing for you?
It's good.
It's good?
I think it's been when I was hired in 2010, going through different services. Obviously, I worked at a service that was bigger, which had more females in the service. You do come to a smaller service, and the ratio still seems the same. It is nice to work with. In this service, we're a lot more close knit, so we see each other. The girls see each other more often, and I don't know. We all get along really well, and it's nice because we're all very similar type people, and we all have our backs, each other's backs, and it's been a great experience coming to Woodstock, and I've met a lot of great people, and I have a lot of great friends here, and I think the guys are all pretty respectful of the girls, and the platoons are great, and I would say that's anything I think about on a regular basis, that it's different for me as a female, so.
You still have just as many opportunities.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
Awesome. All right. Any last words before we close out for today?
I do, actually.
All right.
I actually even wrote up a conclusion.
Perfect.
So one of the big things, motivation, and life experience. It's a key assessment that you'll need to demonstrate. It just shows why you're interested in policing, and understanding that this is not an impulsive career choice. It's not something that you can just jump into and go, hey, I'm going to try it. It doesn't work that way. When considering a career, first thing you should do is research the service that you are trying to apply to. Go on all social media platforms, Google the service, the city, everything. Try to find out as much as you can. Understand what you are applying for and what it's meant to be a police officer. I can't drive this home enough. An average person will experience 2 critical incidents in their lifetime, whereas an officer given a 30-year career will experience over 800 to 1,000 critical incidents. So you have to consider that this is the right path for you, know what you're getting into. And again, we receive hundreds of applications a year. Make sure you do the best to make yours stand out.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us today, and thanks to you guys for being here to answer all of the questions that we have. This video will be available if anyone needs to go back and review some of the answers that were already provided, if your questions came up later, if you joined us partway through. So thanks again, and have a great day, everyone.